If you have a 2011 through 2016 Ford Super Duty, you are probably well aware that the factory headlights on these trucks absolutely suck. They're some of the worst light output I've ever had to deal with in a vehicle, and in my opinion, they should have never left the factory this way. So, fortunately, there are a couple of ways you can fix that. One is you can go out and spend, I've seen upwards toward $2,000 for an aftermarket set of headlights. And those tend to be fairly bright. Morimoto makes a great option. I know there's some others that are a little cheaper, but I've also seen them have quite a bit of issues. And I've also seen the Morimotos have quite a few people complaining of issues with those as well. So your other option is to basically build them yourself. So obviously, I'm sure you guys can guess, that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. What I have here are just a set of OEM headlights. I ended up actually buying these off of Marketplace, and the reason for that, of course, you could just use the ones that are already in your truck. I didn't want my truck to be down for multiple days because this is going to be a multi-day process. We're going to have to pull these apart, we're going to have to strip them down, paint them, and then reassemble them. You don't have to do the painting process, that's just what I'm going to do. And like I was saying, didn't want to have my truck down. And also, if you do mess one up, you got two sets that way. You guys might think that these are expensive. Actually, I was able to pick these up for, I believe, $80, ended up paying for them. And it wasn't the only set I was able to find on Marketplace either. There's quite a few people that are taking off their OEM headlights, swapping in aftermarket ones, and they just want to get these out of their garage rather than throw them away at the dump. They got them for sale for pretty cheap. So that's what I would recommend. Just grab a set off Marketplace or even eBay of just some of these OEM takeoffs. So for any of you that may have watched my video where we did the Mustang headlights, you know that we tried baking them and that did not work at all, so we ended up having to resort to the heat gun. So I do know that these Super Duty headlights, they use the same permaseal that Ford apparently uses on all their headlights now. The Mustangs were absolutely horrible to take apart. But I did read quite a few things online where people were able to bake these at 210 degrees for about 10 minutes. And usually with 2 cycles, they were able to get these things apart, even with the permaseal. So I'm willing to give it a shot. I know I tried it with the Mustang ones, it didn't work, so we had to resort to the heat gun. So that may be what we have to do with this one as well. But for now, we're gonna go ahead, try to bake these 10 minutes, 210 degrees, see if we can start pulling them apart. And fingers crossed, everything will go well.
A few moments later.
Well, unfortunately, the people who had the oven work for them must have had a larger oven than I do, because these do not fit in my oven. I can't get the door closed. Not gonna happen. So, we're back to using the heat gun. I did get a couple new things that I'll be using that I did not have when I did the Mustang headlights. One of them is this nice little spreader tool. It's kind of like some reverse pliers. They're Morimoto labeled, but I've seen quite a few online that you can buy. I also got this, it's almost like spoon shaped, but it's kind of also like a flathead screwdriver. So hopefully I can get that in there and help to pry these apart. And then I've of course got regular flathead screwdrivers. I did just want to try something that was a little wider and hopefully not mark up the edges as much as I ended up doing when I did the Mustang ones. So we'll see how this goes, guys. I think it's going to probably take a while, but at this point there's really not much more we can do. So first thing we're doing is looking all around the back side of the headlight just to make sure that there's no bolts or screws or anything that are holding it together. I do see one here. It is a little 5mm screw. So we're just gonna go ahead and take that out real quick. If you don't take these out, then when you go to start separating the thing, you're probably gonna have some plastic ripping or else things just are not going to cooperate very well with you in general. And as you guys can see, I do have a blanket underneath this too. That's just to not scratch up the lens face any more than we have to. So now we're just gonna start heating up this edge, and we'll be starting to pry it apart here on the front. You can see that seal is nice and oozed out all along here. So hopefully it cooperates with us. All right guys, we're about half an hour into this now, and this stuff actually was not as bad as I remembered my car being. We are essentially disassembled at this point. Or at least the headlight is in half, which is the hardest part by far. And we didn't crack or destroy the lens, so that's a plus as well. Pull off as much of this factory permaseal as we can. Downside of using heat gun, you can kind of maybe see here, but we did get that a little too hot, so it kind of almost melted. So really try to take your time when you go around these edges and don't get things too hot. And then as far as the backside goes, you can see there's still a lot of that sealant in here, and we do need to get all that out. So we're going to continue working our way around with the heat gun. Heat up an area, pull as much as we can out of there, and then we'll go from there. All right, so after messing around with this thing a little bit, we were able to get it out. So you guys can see here on the back where those, you got a bolt there, and they kind of got like a ball and socket type connection here. So not sure if you can see that, but on the top of this ball connection, there's these little plastic tabs here, and you can kind of push out on those with a screwdriver. And as you're applying pressure upward, got them on both of those. As you're applying pressure upward, you can get that to pop free. And then you just take and unscrew your adjuster there, and that comes right out. I don't remember if I was talking about the reflector already or not, but that does have to come out for doing this projector retrofit. So you will have to basically get this out in order to get that out of there either way. Unless you're just going to cut that projector out, because as you can see here on the bottom, there's a Torx screw that holds that projector in there. So we have to remove that. And I'm glad I did it anyway. It's going to make it a lot cleaner for when I go to paint this and everything, and it'll just make the whole process a lot easier. All right, everything is fully disassembled now. I did get the orange reflector out as well. You guys can see how it's attached there at the back. I did end up breaking one of the tabs on this side. But what I ended up doing, because you'd think you just push them together and it would drop right out, but for some reason it didn't want to. So I actually took a pair of wire cutters and it kind of cut off on the inside of here. That way you could push them together just a little more, and that allowed it to drop right out of there. I'm still not 100% sure what I want to do with this yet, because I don't really want to leave it orange, but we'll see what I end up doing with that. So I spent a ton of time trying to get these plastics all painted, and I was having tons of issues with the paint just cracking and just looked like just spiderweb cracks all over the paint. And no matter what I did, I was letting it cure in between coats for 24 hours. No matter what I did, I just could not get it to work. And so I ended up getting so frustrated, I just took it to a local paint shop. And they kind of explained to me what was happening is when you're doing those rattle can type paint jobs, they use a ton of solvents in those paints. Basically what ends up happening is no matter how long you wait in between your coats, that solvent just ends up penetrating down, and that's where you start getting all the cracking happening on your paint. So depending on what you guys want to do, obviously it does cost a decent bit of money to get these painted professionally, but in my opinion it was well worth it. I was able to get them color matched exactly to my truck. I got the tuxedo black metallic that the King Ranch has from the factory. And I also got that little reflector piece that goes on the side of the headlight. I got it painted the same gold color that the two-tone trim is on my truck as well. It's definitely a way more durable job than anything I would have been able to do with the spray paint can. Not to mention the clear coat is perfect. There's no orange peel. I didn't have to deal with any wet sanding, which I was trying, and I had some spots that were looking pretty good, but the cracking was just insufferable and looked absolutely terrible. Now, as you guys can see, I did go ahead and assemble one headlight, and the reason for that was I didn't want to spend a ton of time having to do a bunch of trial and error on camera and really just bore you guys. So I figured I'd go ahead and put one together and see what all needed done and figure out what worked and what didn't work. I do not have this sealed up yet. It's just kind of all put together, got the projectors in and everything, but the final gluing and everything still needs to be done for securing the plastic lens cover to the actual headlight body. One thing I will note is there was a lot more cutting that was involved than I was originally expecting. Didn't really have to do anything on this top portion. This all worked just fine. I did have to drill 4 holes in there to mount my dummy projector in because I'm not doing dual projectors like I've seen some people do. Main problem that I've seen happen with that is it's really impossible to aim that top projector. You don't have a screw on the back where you can rotate that lower bucket. This one is just fixed. It is what it is. And so basically all you can do is try to shim your projector, try to get it lined up. I didn't want to deal with that. So I ended up just doing a dummy, which will still look good, and that'll be what my turn signal sits in. The actual headlight bucket where this reflector originally mounted from the factory, didn't think I was going to have to cut that out, but there's no way the projector would actually mount in there. So I did end up having to take and cut that out. And then I also had to do some trimming on the back. Depending what type of projector you get, you may not have to do that. The one I chose, the diameter was just too wide, and there was no way I could get it in there without kind of trimming out this whole section. So did have to do a bit of cutting with the Dremel tool. It made it work super fast. That's what we're going to start on first. So we'll go ahead and jump right into that. So once you're all done, this is essentially what you're going to want it to look like. That factory reflector in there, we completely cut out and removed. So now you can kind of see in there, that new projector is going to be able to sit flush all the way against that hole, where before you had basically a big raised bump there and it couldn't actually sit in there. Then on the back side, we basically trimmed all that out. Something I would recommend doing if you guys do end up having to cut yours like I did with mine, which I'm kind of guessing you're at the very least going to have to cut out where that factory reflector was, is I would do that before I paint yours. Nothing wrong with mine, I didn't tear it up or anything, but just in case something gets damaged, it'd be better if you were to damage it before painting it than after. Oh, and I did change my shirt, got covered in dust, and you really want to try to keep dust away from these components as you're putting them together. Just makes less of a mess. The next thing I'm going to do, now that the headlight bucket that goes down here is all cut and ready to go, is we're going to go ahead and drill holes in this upper bucket where the turn signal is going to go and where our dummy projector is going to mount. There's a lot of ways you guys can probably do this. Some people may use glue. I personally don't really want to go that route, so what I did with the other one is I drilled 4 holes here in the back, and I actually mounted the dummy projector with that. And then I glued the projector to the centric ring, which mounts inside of the shroud, so that way it can't be pulled backward, and then there's nuts on the back side so it can't fall out to the front. So right here is everything that we have that's going to be going into that upper bucket where our turn signal is going to be. We've got the little mini projector right here, which is a dummy. You can see there's nothing there on the back. You just got your 4 legs there with the mounting holes. We've got the centric ring here, which fits around this dummy projector. So basically why I went with the dummy projector is I didn't really want to have just the turn signal bulb sticking out. Figured it would look a little bit off. Here's the shroud that's going to be going in here. You can get a lot of different ones. I originally had got some of the round ones, and they did not fit in here at all. One of the videos I had watched someone else do, they used them, but they had to trim them quite a bit, and I really didn't like the way that looked. So I ended up going with some that are flat on the top and the bottom, and so it'll fit way into that shape a lot better. It is a perfectly snug fit. You can't really go any wider on your diameter as far as top to bottom goes. So it's got all these little ears here in the back, and that's what your centric ring is going to clip onto. It's a tight fit to get it popped in there, so don't be afraid to force a little bit, but don't break those little tabs off there in the back. So that's how that sits in there. All right, our holes are all drilled. Make sure to get all the particles out of here. Don't want to leave anything behind. I can't stress to you guys enough how important it is to keep all of this clean. I mean, fingerprints, any dust or anything. Might not seem like much, but as soon as you seal these together, you're stuck with whatever you left behind in there. So make sure it looks as good as you want it to. So what I use to hold that dummy projector into here is just some number 8-32 by 2-inch screws. They're just Phillips head screws. Then I got a bunch of nuts, washers, lock washers. So I kind of put this together already. We'll go ahead and pull that dummy projector out of there just because these screws fit in here pretty tight. So just kind of put them in there, and for the most part thread them by hand. I had a couple on that other one that fit a little tighter, and I actually had to run them down with a Phillips head screwdriver. So just to let you guys know, these are not going to be sitting flat against there. This is going to be poking out quite a ways. That's why I'm saying put the glue around here to hold it on there, and that's going to hold it in there. But we don't want these screws to back out that way at all. So I am going to go ahead and throw a washer and a lock washer followed by a nut on each of these. One other super important thing is make sure and keep this projector wiped off. Nothing worse than having to look at some fingerprints or some dust on the backside of there. So like I was telling you guys before, now I got this figured out where I want this projector to be in relation to where the shroud is. So I went ahead and made just a little mark there. As you can see, it's not much at all, but that way I can line those two dots out when I go to take this apart, put the glue on it, and I'll know right where to put it back together so it's exactly how it needs to be. Now when it comes to projectors, there are obviously a ton of options out there. The most popular probably being the Morimoto brand of projectors. A lot of people will tell you that's just the go-to and immediately head that way. However, I've read a lot of reviews. A lot of people have issues with them giving out prematurely. I know several people that have purchased pre-built Morimoto headlights that just you slap right into your vehicle, and they've had weird malfunctions with those. So I ended up doing a bit more research, ended up going with the G5-R projector. This is one that's been used for a long time, and people seem to have really good luck with it. There's probably several different brands of this model. I got these from Lightworks. These are a bi-xenon, which I don't remember if I already told you guys, but I went with HID projectors rather than LED. So my projectors came with the hardware needed for putting these into your headlights. You got your silicone washer, which is going to go onto this before you put it into the headlight bucket. Sit just like that, kind of sandwich up against there, keep it nice and snug and not rattling around. Pop this shroud into place. Give all that a nice wipe down. It's important to get this very straight. Which this shroud should line you up pretty good in there. We'll go ahead and put this lock nut in there, followed by the retaining nut. And then we'll snug this up with a pair of channel locks. This one I didn't cut too much off this plastic, and I probably should have cut a little more off. I may have to yet. We'll see how much it sucks it in, but you got to have enough threads there to still get the lock nut for the bulb on. So for headlight bulbs, I did go with a Morimoto bulbs. Haven't really seen anybody have issues with their headlight bulbs, so I figured that was a pretty safe bet. These are the XB D2S bulbs. Very simple to install now that we got the projector in there. Go ahead and pull it out. Make sure to wipe off the area that I touched there. This portion back here, there's a kind of a, where that slot is, where we put the nut, you can see this bulb is going to line up right there. So we'll just set that in there. It locks in, and then we'll go ahead and put our spring Go ahead and throw in the spring on over the top of that, and then this retaining kind of a wing nut that's going to lock and hold that bulb into place. And the spring will keep tension on it. So, very simple process. There we go. Got my area cleaned up a little bit here, so we'll go ahead and put back on this reflector. That gold looks so good. There we go. Just clicks right back into place. Gives it a nice good contrast. Obviously matches the truck, so pretty happy with that. Now we'll go ahead and take our lens, make sure that's all nice and cleaned out. And we'll go ahead and set that into place in the lens. We're going to go ahead and get ready to install these things now. So unless you want to make your own wiring harness, I would recommend getting this one, the Morimoto one. It is the H13 by Xenon harness, and that's going to give you outputs that's going to power both your projector and your HID ballasts. So this will be a very nice plug and play, super easy to do. As you can see, it's got labels on everything, so I definitely recommend that. We're going to go ahead and start throwing this thing in. When it comes to mounting all this stuff behind the headlight, you guys can really do it however you want. I took Velcro strips that had sticky tape on the back, and I got my ballast mounted here. Just right kind of behind the headlight, there was space there. Got this box mounted right here with more sticky tape on the side. And then the error canceller I've got mounted kind of back here on the left. It's kind of hard to see it, but another box right there. Then as far as the rest of it goes, you got your high beam, which like I was saying is labeled on the harness. So that's going to plug into the projector. It goes right there to the back of your headlight. Your actual headlight bulb, of course, is going to plug in to these two plugs here, which is going to go and be fed by your ballast. That's going to be getting power directly from your battery. And then the only other thing on this driver's side is your factory H13 plug is going to plug into the provided H13 from the Morimoto harness. And that's going to feed up to this box here, which is going to allow you to have power to your bulbs, whether it's in high or low beam. Aside from that though, we're done on the driver's side. So we'll try to kind of tidy up these wires so that nothing's getting pinched. Maybe zip tie them together, kind of see what works best. And we'll go ahead and put this into place. So here they are installed, guys. You can see we got that switchback LED signal in there. I got the hazards on right now, so you can't see it when it's white. I may do a different bulb because the white doesn't show through very good, but the blinkers work perfect. And then this is the headlights here. You can see from the top, you can't even tell that they're on at all, hardly. But you get down kind of on the same level as them, and man, they are bright, which is what you want. That's the whole point of doing the projectors. Gives you a really nice cutoff line. It isn't really getting darker here enough anymore in the summertime to where I can get a good video, but you can see super nice line there on the wall. Flick the high beams on real quick. I mean, this is broad daylight, guys, and you can see it easily from there, but they got a super nice cutoff. Super happy with how they turned out, really. So yeah, that's gonna be about it for this one, guys. This was definitely a super involved process, but I'm kind of happy I did it just because it's kind of nice to have my own kind of custom touches on my lights. So yeah, if you guys got any questions, make sure to let me know in the comments. If you do want to do something like this, don't go into it thinking that it's going to be super easy, because it's not. Once again, it's kind of like if you watched my Mustang headlight video, it just takes a long time to get those headlights apart. So be prepared for that. But I will say it is super exciting to have your own ideas and your own design come to life. Could have done a lot more. Probably other people might have thrown some LED strips in there, but just wasn't what I was really wanting to go for with these ones. And I can always do something later if I want to as well. So catch you later, guys.